Okay, so we're here at the Swing Catalyst booth with Dr. Scott. Thanks for doing this with us.
Hey, no
Really
problem.
appreciate it. So we've been doing some work with gears. We've been going to visit different instructors, kind of trying to apply knowledge of the golf swing and helping people get better at golf in combination with club fitting as sort of a route to sort of your total improvement package.
Yeah.
So Swing Catalyst is not one that I have any experience with. I know of it, and I know it's obviously got a lot of value. So we wanted to come by and get with you, just sort of get a little rundown of what it's applied for with the golf swing.
Sure. So your video camera, your gear system, your KVS, they tell you what already happened.
Okay.
They're kind of like, I already moved. And so, but when you move, Isaac Newton told us that we need forces to move.
Right.
And so that club will sit there forever until a force is applied to it that causes it to move.
Right.
And so we know that you have to have external forces coming from your body to cause something to move. Like if you sit in your car and you're stuck in the snow, you can push on the steering wheel all day. It's not going to work.
Okay.
You got to get out of the car and push on the bumper, have an external force.
Moving, yeah.
Sure. So in golf, where do external forces come from? The only thing we're connected to is our feet on the ground.
Right.
And so that's what this thing collects. It collects the forces that are occurring between your feet and the ground,
right.
Which create the motions of our golf swing. And so if we have some kind of abnormal golf swing or motions happening in our golf swing, they're originating from the ground.
So if someone's trying to work on their backswing issue, they're over the top, ultimately there's something going on with the ground movement issue that can be traced back.
Yeah, and if you move differently, the ground feels something different, but you could constantly think of pushing the ground differently to create different movements. And so some people's brains work different ways.
Yeah.
And so we've had a lot of teachers who have given people like kinematic cues or movement cues, and it's changed the ground forces. But we also have now, based on this, we have an extra tools in our toolbox as a teacher to talk about the ground forces to actually change the movement.
So change a pattern in a way that actually would be from the ground up.
Right, yeah. And so many people have talked about it forever, right?
Yeah.
You see those old Hogan books are like, I want 80% in my trail. He didn't have a clue, he was just guessing.
Of course not, yeah.
So now we can actually measure those things and visualize them, and I think the feedback that this can give you, so you can actually see the pressure between your feet and the ground as you're standing there.
Visually, right.
Which can really help you, and a lot of my motor learning buddies who are understanding how to teach people motor tasks say that external cues are better than internal cues.
Right.
If I tell you just get in your heel more, well, your heel's part of you, that's an internal cue.
Right.
But if I look at the graph on the TV and I say, see this right here, make it red.
Oh, so I'm watching and I'm making that.
And you're moving it. That helps you learn better because you like mess with it. You're like, oh, that's not right. Oh, that's better. Okay. And so a lot of studios have like a TV screen in front of you where you actually get live
So I would
feedback.
just sit and watch that as I take my stance.
Yeah, you could.
Oh,
and a lot of, they actually have it in the ground at an angle so you can stay in your posture.
Oh, really?
And you can see it.
Smart.
Yeah,
smart.
So there's, and I think with a lot of the young kids these days who are using technology for everything, I think to have that live feedback and that and it's not your, and I think a lot of our users are like, it's not my opinion anymore. So like,
it's
if
a
you
good point.
say, you're not in your left side enough and they actually show you the data, oh yeah, you're not. Like,
because you can measure, you've got a quad here, which is great.
Yeah.
I can measure, we're not going to argue over launch angle and spin rate. They are what they are.
They are what they
are.
are.
But if you see a video of my swing, we may not agree on whatever it may be, whatever technique-based issue, but you're physically measuring those
and
movements.
There's actually a lot of times where you look at a video and you think, oh my God, he's way into his trail side or way into his lead side, but when you actually look at the pressures, you're actually not.
Could just be the way the person's shaped or the way they stand that gives that impression.
And in motion, like, so if I stand here, neutral, I'm pretty 50-50. And if I go here and stop, I'm going to be way more here.
Right.
And if I go here and stop, but as I'm moving, it's possible that I could be way over here, but I'm shoving like heck through this foot.
Okay.
Which is a whole different scenario than if I'm over here and I'm shoving through this foot. And so all of these things have been hidden to us, and that's what the main sales pitch is for this. Your best video camera, the best gear system, the best KVS in the world cannot see the force between the feet and the ground.
Very interesting. So really quickly give me, how does that work?
What we have is we have a pressure plate which measures the forces perpendicular to the surface, and that's going to give us the heat map, so where you're pushing with your foot.
Which is behind us in the corner, and you're standing on it right now.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see where those forces are moving.
Right.
Underneath that is a force plate.
Right.
And so we don't only just push down into the ground when we take a golf swing, right? We push side to side, we push forward and backwards, we twist our feet.
So it's measuring that sort of axis, those multiple axes. Okay.
Yeah, so there's basically three things that a golfer can do to create speed. I can move horizontally or sway or slide.
Yep.
So it measures that horizontal force.
Right.
I can twist or rotate or create rotational speed or force. Yep. So I measure that, the torque, and the last thing we've learned a lot about recently is the vertical force.
So that would be your pushing up.
Yeah, so you see guys like Justin Thomas and Bubba Watson jumping off
Great
the ground.
example of guys that do that.
Yeah, so I think that's something that we used to try to take out of the game, right? Like I remember being a kid and having golf lessons where the guy was holding
I know.
Like, we don't jump in this game. It's not basketball. Like,
it's true.
But I've had a lot of golf teachers that if Justin Thomas's father held his foot on the ground, you wouldn't know who he was. He'd be selling insurance now because you take away his main power source.
Good point.
And so what we know is every golfer has a combination of horizontal, rotation, and vertical.
Yeah.
It's just how much.
And that's how you're able to literally map it and
Sure.
assess whether that's a good thing and a bad thing, and then that's how you change
Yeah,
it for the better.
and literally one of our ambassadors has a slide that he shows when he does lectures where it's like an amplifier on a music.
Okay.
Right? So it has treble, bass, and I don't remember what the other thing is. I'm not good at music.
I don't know either.
And so if you put, some singer up there, they might need more treble and less bass to make them sound good.
Oh, okay.
But you might need way the heck more bass and way less treble. And so you're literally just dialing up the optimal contribution for every single human.
Interesting.
And through the work I've done with Mike Adams, who is just here, he has tests that he puts people through.
Oh, really?
So when you get a lesson, you have a whole bunch of assessments on your body first, so he knows what the optimal contribution is, then he measures them, and if it's off, he has drills to get you
to
back
do it for
into
your
balance.
personal. Okay, gotcha.
And so what I've learned when I first started doing research, everybody would ask me, like, what's the optimal pressure and force pattern? I'm like, I don't know. I see all the best in the world doing different things.
So there isn't one.
There isn't one.
Okay.
There is one for you. There's one for me.
So it's a personal thing,
It
obviously.
is. And so what you have to do is assess the golfer and figure out what is the optimal contribution of all of those things, what's the optimal pressure shift. And then once you get that, and when we first started, it was a trial and error thing. I told all the best teachers to say, when your guy's striping it, measure him. Don't say anything, just measure him.
Oh, okay.
And then when he gets off, tell me, and we'll measure it side by side.
So you
and we can-
benchmark, basically.
You
This is
benchmark.
good performance.
That's what we started with, and then we started to learn a lot from that, and then eventually we started to figure out, without even a benchmark, we can figure out today whether you're optimal or not.
I can tell you I'm probably not. So let's find out. Let me hit a couple shots.
Sure, let's do
and
that.
then you can basically take me through your normal process.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so what we see here is, the first thing I look at, and I don't know if you can see, but there's little black bands on each graph.
I do see that, yeah.
That's the tour average. So the middle of that's the tour average. The top of the black band is +1 standard deviation, the bottom is -1 standard deviation.
Gotcha.
And so, I don't know if you've taken any stats in your life, but if you think of a bell curve, between +1 standard deviation, you get a lot of people in that.
Right. Gotcha.
And so that just tells us, because let's say you're measuring your pelvic angular velocity on gears, and you have 500.
Yeah.
Is that a lot? Is that a little? I don't know. What the hell is that? Right?
There's no relativity, right?
And so this just gives you a relative measure of how much you have relative to what everybody else has.
Gotcha.
And all the graphs are relative to your own body weight, so it's
Okay.
just how you're doing relative to you. Cool. But you can see your horizontal force is at the very top of the tour average for the horizontal force. You see how that spike goes very top
The
of
purple
black?
spike
Yeah.
there. Okay.
Whereas your torque, your rotational, doesn't even get close to the tour
Really?
average, and your vertical is right at the bottom. So I would say if I had to rank your power sources, horizontal would be first, vertical would be second, and torque would be
It makes
third.
a lot of sense. I have a very hard time rotating properly.
Sure.
That's what I'm working on.
And so what we find is a very horizontal player generally has that club drop down to the inside.
exactly
and then
what I
the block
struggle
and
with.
hook miss comes into it. So I could have guessed that without even knowing
It's very
you
interesting.
telling me that.
No, it matches up perfectly. Yeah.
And so then we would test you and see, does that match you or not? There's a lot of good players on the PGA Tour who can control horizontal force and still
So
hit
they
it
just
great.
do it through just good hands or something like that?
I mean, there's a lot of matchups that you have to have. One thing generally is a more upright backswing because the horizontal force shallows
It removes it, yeah,
and
gotcha.
so Mike Adams has a test where he measures your forearm and your upper arm, and if the forearm's longer than your upper arm, that makes you more upright.
Really?
And so if your forearm's longer than your upper arm, which it kind of looks like it is, if you go like this, yeah, see how much higher your hand is than that?
Oh, I see what you're
So
saying.
you might have adapted that naturally
Due to that.
to cause the club to shallow. So
Very interesting.
that could be something that matches you. I don't know. But if your miss is a block and a hook,
Yeah, 100% it is.
then what I would probably want you to do is, like I said with the little dial down the horizontal and dial up the torque. Because if I could get you to produce more torque, that's going to drag your club around to for you, you're a lefty, so I got to turn around more out to in a little bit
So
more.
if I need to, focus on rotating while hitting a bit of a fade, it's going to change my angles.
Yeah, and so one thing we found about, let's wait till that guy's done. One thing we found about creating torque or forces off the ground, a good way to teach them is using something called reactive neuromuscular training.
Okay.
And so if I want to teach you to turn more, what I do is I'll get you to the top of your backswing and I'll actually take your hips and try to twist them into the backswing more. And I say, for you, resist it.
So you're resisting the motion you want.
I'm pushing you in the opposite direction.
Right.
Because you'll see a lot of players, like say you take it to the top of your backswing and they want your elbow in more. They're going to be like, bring your elbow in. Well, who did that? I did that. You didn't do that.
So you want to push it out so that I have
So
to
I have
force
to push it in, right?
So an
and so
opposite force.
one of our ambassadors named John Dunnigan in Philly, he says the one who does the work does the learning.
Right.
So if I'm pulling your elbow in for you, I'm doing the work. You're not learning anything. And so I want to do the opposite. And that works really well for ground reaction force.
Makes a lot of sense. I've never tried that for that particular thing.
And so what we can do is just take it to the top here, stand here.
Okay.
Turn around, face that way. Take it to the top and stop. So what I do is I hold you back. So try to turn, I got to do it the opposite way. You're a lefty. Try to turn through. Turn through, turn through, turn through, turn through. Oh, see that?
Also just finish through, okay.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
I let go of you just to feel it, but
So you're providing the opposite force, so I'm working harder than I normally would.
Right.
So when the force is removed, I'll do it easier.
yeah.
Okay, wow.
And so we have a whole bunch of drills, and not everybody, that doesn't work with everyone.
Yeah, just for
sometimes
this-
it works, but
just
it's
for this
one
pattern.
tool to try to get more torque.
It's very interesting.
And if you get that more torque and that yellow spike comes up and your path moves more
Yes.
from in to out, and we're like, cool. And most of the time speed will go up too. If we start getting you more towards your optimal pattern,
Right.
club head speed goes up, path and face get closer to neutral, and then the game just becomes easier because you're not trying to manipulate things.
Yeah,
and
you're not
try
trying to
work
fight against one of those
your
two
body
misses.
or against how you're constantly working.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a pretty powerful tool. I always kind of tell people, like, I think it was 2008. I came down to Orlando and hung out with Sean Foley.
Nice.
And he took this orange box out and put it behind me, and I hit a shot, and all these numbers pop up, and I was like,
What's that?
cool, what the heck is that? Right, but then we get the ball flight laws, and then now every single golf teacher, I don't know a golf teacher that teaches that launch monitor. To me, this is the launch monitor.
As essential.
Yeah, it's going to be. Because what did it take to make the track or like launch monitors essential was the research to get the ball flight laws, so we knew.
Okay.
And so we're in the process of doing that research now, and
Oh, okay.
I would say we're in about 2010 in launch monitor years. So
Really?
the top coaches, the Liam Mucklows, the Sean Foleys,
Right.
the Cameron McCormicks, they
They're
have
here
this.
already.
Not everybody on the planet has one. And like, it's expensive. It's expensive
Yeah.
technology.
Well, it's good that you brought that up because I think I knew about it, but I didn't really think it was mainstream, and it's obviously it isn't yet. And I think people will go, I know that's kind of where it might be going, but it's not quite TrackMan to them yet. It's not quite Foresight to
Well,
them
and I
yet.
think that's my job, is to do the research to make it a useful
make it that
tool.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think my hypothesis is we're in 2010 in launch monitor. So in 2010, when I'm in a room of golf pros, I say, who had a launch monitor in 2010?
couple hands.
Maybe 10% of the hands go
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Who has a launch monitor now? All the hands go
Yeah.
up. I'm in a room right now, I say, how many people have ground force? 10% of the hands go up. You
So
go
we'll see when that
8
is.
years down the road, I'm going to bet that you're going to have
That's awesome. Well, hopefully that will sort of age well and be sort of the good predictor. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. It's good to sort of benchmark it against something that people are so aware of, like
Right.
launch monitors.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you doing this with
Hey,
us.
thank you,
It's
man.
very
It was
interesting.
fun.
Thank you so much.
All right.